Is Mark Cuban actually running for president right now of the United States? Is he the Democratic nominee? And I say this because Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, of course, hardly do any media. The only media really they do on a consistent basis are teleprompter speeches. And how much information are you really gathering from a teleprompter speech? The only teleprompter speeches I think that are consequential are State of the Union and then those major DNC and RNC speeches where it's clear that the candidate has a lot of input into what is being said. But just a regular speech, I mean, how do you know that's the candidate's voice, the nominee's voice, or just the staff's voice? So to look into this, let's look at, this is from Grok. Kamala Harris, right here, it says, from the information gathered, at least 4 distinct interviews have been mentioned explicitly. Now, like, I mean, you could argue it is more than 4, I would say. Like, there have been a few more that have popped up, but you'd be generous, I think, if you gave her 10 legitimate interviews. Like, see, even here, I don't think they're counting this, but one of them they mentioned on this Grok AI thing says wired autocomplete interviews. So that'd be like just those little fun interviews where you're like filling out a Google search and they're saying, oh, it's because I like to cook or whatever. And then this is just from New York Post. Anxious Kamala Harris is on track to have fewest interviews of any nominee, and even Dems are nervous. So, I mean, it's clear, like, she just hardly does any interviews. Tim Walz, this is on Tim Walz, looking him up on YouTube, the VP nominee. I mean, where are the interviews? I just search into the field, Tim Walz interview. I mean, here's one, but this is a clip from the joint interview he did with Kamala. I mean, he's done like more than one, but not on a consistent basis whatsoever. And then if you look at Trump does them a lot. He doesn't do them nearly as much as he did in 2016, but compared to Kamala, 5-1, maybe even more than that. Like, here's an interview. Here's an interview with Dave Ramsey. Melania, but he did a bunch more. He did one with Larry Kudlow today. Here's one with that same Dave Ramsey. But it does not take much research to realize that Trump does multiple interviews every single week. And he also just takes questions. Like, at the end of a lot of his, like here, there's questions. He did a town hall today, for example. At a lot of his just speeches, he'll just take questions from the audience. That hardly ever happens on the other side. They're looking at J.D. Vance, VP candidate. Interview. And again, same thing. He takes questions after a lot of his rallies. He just sits there and goes, okay, any questions? What do you got? Now, so that's kind of given us a landscape of what's happening. Who's the Democratic nominee? Who's giving a perspective pro-Democrat in the entire world on a consistent basis? Like, who's coming on television and giving some sort of unscripted, extemporaneous comment on what's the benefit to vote for Kamala? It's Mark Cuban. It's one guy. Tell me in the comments if you can think of anybody else, because it's like essentially this guy's running for president. Mark Cuban running for prez. This is like this flagrant, a massive podcast. All in podcast. Huge podcast with like a very sophisticated audience too. High information audience. Mark Cuban, Theo Vaughn. Like, how come Kamala's not doing all this? Mark Cuban slams Trump, endorses Harris, MSNBC. By the way, this is just like, I just searched, I think, into this bar, Mark Cuban. I didn't even cherry pick. Yeah, I just searched in Mark Cuban. This one, Mark Cuban, AI. Well, I guess he's talking about AI necessarily in this one, not necessarily the election. He probably did, but I don't know for sure. But here, this one, CNBC, Mark Cuban. So anyway, he does this Club Shay Shay. I don't know if he exactly talked that much about politics in it, but I would venture it came up just being this close to the election. Massive podcast, by the way. Mark Cuban on the Harris tax plan. I mean, and if you've been following the election at all on X and all over media, Mark Cuban is by far the Democratic surrogate, doing the most press and giving the most kind of pro Kamala Harris takes. Even listened to him recently, all in podcast, this clip here, when they asked him if he's planning on running for president or not.
3/4 of the Mavericks, check, did that. Helping people with this cost plus drugs and saving people money. It's a pretty noble mission. Kind of adds up to you're going to run for president. And
no, there's no way.
No? Why not? It would be a great thing to do. You've checked off all the boxes. Why wouldn't you?
He's too old now. Too old now, right, Mark?
He's not. What are you talking about? He's 20 years younger.
Again, I just would argue he's almost running for president right now. Like if Kamala wins, Mark Cuban, I'm sure, is going to have some role in the administration. Maybe not a formal role, but I mean, I don't know. Like again, I just would make the point. It seems like he's the one running for president. Who else are you getting interviews from? Again, that clip will play at the end of Kamala off teleprompter. And then she gives a few, most people would consider them softball interviews. I certainly would as well. Just softball interviews. It's very difficult. You just have to like read between the lines and kind of make inferences about what you think Kamala would stand for and what she would do in office. You certainly have to take guesses on what she stands for. It is not clear at all because she's apparently flipped her position on fracking, on Green New Deal, on a lot of things.
And Trump and Biden.
Wikipedia's wrong. I'm a sock puppet in my spare time. I changed the.
No, 4 years from now, 8 years from now, would you even consider it? Or if you were going to consider it?
Yeah, right, of our era, right?
Yeah.
How would you process making that decision?
My kids hated the idea. My wife hated the idea.
Okay.
They want, it's hard enough for them to have a normal life as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, he makes the point. Basically, his family would not be for it, and that's obviously a fair position. And certainly what he's doing right now is clearly a step under. Like he doesn't get nearly the scrutiny that he would if he was actually running for president. But the case I'm just making this video that I do think that the Republicans and the right wing are kind of giving this guy a pass because he's kind of taken over the reins as the Democratic nominee, and he's kind of getting all this benefit, all this press. I mean, he's already rich, but he's certainly having an impact and getting his name out there even more, and not really dealing with any of the downsides of like the kind of onslaught of negative press. And then just kind of for fun, we'll play this last clip here from Kamala. This is her not on a teleprompter. This happened
32.
today.
Today we got 32 days.
Again, I can't confirm this is not teleprompter, like the teleprompter broke, but most people think it did.
Until the election. So 32 days.
Come on, you can just see it, right?
32 days. Okay, we got some business to do.
I mean, there's no way.
All right.
There's no way that would be in the teleprompter just to constantly say 32 days.
32 days. And we know we will do it.
So that's off teleprompter. 32 days, 32 days, 32 days, 32 days. We will do it. Very profound, very deep. Maybe there's some philosophical meaning. Maybe the 32, maybe she's like a numerologist or something. I'm obviously kidding, but like the... Anyway, I'll end the video there. Do you agree with this at all, what I'm saying? Because I think Mark Cuban is basically the only person out there giving a case for why you would vote for Kamala Harris, at least on a consistent basis, and at least somebody who's like an A-list in terms of being famous. Obviously, there's some other people, but they're not that famous. They don't get on the major shows. Like I'm thinking like kind of a mid-tier streamer or something like that. But anyway, with that said, thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe. Have a great day.